Hey y'all, welcome to Keeping It Real Estate with Kristen. I'm Kristen Goyette. I'm a mortgage loan officer, and this podcast is about all things real estate. And today I have a special guest with me, Mr. Heith Harrison, an insurance agent with Farm Bureau right here in Kinston. So Heith, nobody is in elementary school, middle school, or high school growing up. What do you want to be when you grow up?
Goodness, I know.
I want to be an insurance agent or a mortgage loan officer or a realtor, which I find disheartening. So tell me about yourself and your journey into the insurance world.
It's so funny you say it like that because I literally say the exact same thing when I talk to people about insurance and how I got into it. I mean, literally, you don't wake up one day in high school and say, I really want to be an insurance agent when I grow up. Yeah. I've been in Lenore County, my whole life. I saw Jimmy Parks. He was the agency manager in Lenore County for 30 years. I was best friends with his oldest son growing up. So I saw him. It didn't really trigger any thoughts of wanting to do that as a career, but I saw him, and he's a pillar of the community, servant leader, very respectable in the community. And once I went to school, went to ECU, graduated. Did a career for a number of years, you just sort of fall into it. It's just it's the same story with everyone. However, there are two colleges that I know of, Appalachian State and ECU now has concentrations in risk management and insurance. So at least it's getting out there somewhat.
Right. Okay. So if anybody out there wants to go to school for insurance agent, you need to hook up with Appalachian State and ECU. Well, that's good because that's you graduated from ECU, you're a pirate?
Yep, that's right.
Awesome. Okay, so what was your career before?
I graduated with a bachelor's in urban and regional planning. I literally, I played baseball at LCC. I looked at my transcript and I said, what can I take at ECU where I can graduate the fastest? And all the way my classes aligned, I chose urban and regional planning. But I was also interested in development. I've always been entrepreneurial and wanted to know that side of it. And I was a planner for the county, actually, for about 6 months after I graduated. Back then, there was nothing going on. I wasn't getting any training. So I went to New Hanover County as a zoning enforcement official.
Wow.
So I had to write you a letter or call you if you had a junk vehicle or trash in the yard and overgrown lots and things. I did that for a short time.
Okay.
Ended up getting engaged, moved back. Then I worked for the town of LaGrange as their planner, building inspector, and safety director for about 8.5 years.
Wow, you got an impressive background. So real quick, this is off the cuff. How do you feel like those experiences help shape your career as an insurance agent? Surely it's brought some value to what you've been doing over the last how long?
Well, conflict resolution in some aspects. Just building relationships with people. I mean, that's what sales is in general.
True.
And that's what I loved about insurance, getting into it. It doesn't necessarily have to do with the product that you're offering. It's just the relationships that you build with people, genuine relationships. And that's what sets us apart, I think, at Farm Bureau, rather than, just going to get a policy online and hoping that your coverages are adequate to what you need.
Right.
But yeah, I mean, I before Farm Bureau, I was at two other insurance companies for a very short time because I didn't have any sales experience on my resume because of my background. So I took a sales job at Terminex. I was a sales inspector, so I crawled under your house and told you what we could do to fix some of your problems, and pretty successful at that. I did that for 3 months, and that's when I got into insurance.
Okay.
So, and then I've been with Farm Bureau for 6 years. March 1st was 6 years.
Okay, and you're the branch.
Yeah, I'm the agency manager of the
agency
Kinston
manager
office.
For Kinston office. Yep. Okay, that's super cool.
Yep.
So, no one proposed this job to you. You knew this guy, and you kind of watched him and followed him, and the opportunity arose.
Yeah, I remember some time ago when I was with the town, I actually tried to get on, but there was no availability in Kinston. So, everything happens for a reason. I feel like so. Right. just those experiences. I worked for a life insurance only company before I came to Farm Bureau, so that really helped me out a lot. But yeah, I mean, just seeing him and him being around the community and being such an influential person in the community, really is what motivated me to want to pursue it further.
Awesome. So 6 years, now you're the branch manager. I think that's moving up through the ranks pretty quick. So what's been your business strategy as an insurance agent?
For one, customer service, because nowadays it's lost in every industry. Whether you go out to eat, dinner, or, whether you buy a car, whatever the case is.
Right.
And customer service is lacking, and that's something that Farm Bureau has always thrived in. So that's what I want to bring to the table.
That's awesome. I agree. I think I've even said that on previous podcasts, that customer service is a dying art in our generation or current generation going forward. And it's just, and so my girls have little part-time jobs, and I always tell them, smile, be kind, be nice, no matter what they say, give them what they want. And you're going to be, you're going to do great, and they're going to appreciate it, and it's just going to make your life so much easier. I mean, not that the customer's always right, as Chick-fil-A used to say, but they kind of are.
Yeah. And also, I mean, I think obscurity is a killer for people in sales. If you're not out there and, really making a name for yourself and exposing yourself to what, people in your area, then they're not going to know what you do. So,
right.
I mean, I think that hurts a lot of people.
Right. And for me, in the loan officer world, that's been the hardest part for me. The biggest challenge is, like, I call it self-promotion, but you have to get out there and let people know what you're doing and talk about it and get out of your comfort zone.
Absolutely.
And, I mean, you've been doing it for 6 years now, kind of in the same boat as far as having to get out there and get the business. It's not just coming to you all the time. In 6 years, you're probably not having to deal with that as much. But when you're getting started, you've got to get out there and hustle, and it's tough.
Yeah, and I mean, you have to set yourself apart. If somebody can go online and get a quote instantly, you have to be able to provide something that those folks can't provide.
Right.
Whether that person has to call a 1-800 number and they have no idea who they're talking to, or they're going to have my cell phone number. I give every one of my clients my cell phone number, and I specifically tell them, if it's nights or weekends and you're at your highest anxiety level, if I can calm you down in a 30-second conversation, then that's what I want you to do. So it's just about putting the customer first and making sure they know that that they're in good hands. It's a different company slogan, but you know what I mean.
I got you. Oh, that was good.
Carmen will appreciate that. Chris will appreciate that.
Chris is actually going to come on the show eventually. He's busy right now, but he's agreed to come on, so I'm looking forward to that. But so in our world, like me in particular, I'm not a big online shopper. I could not imagine buying insurance online now that you just mentioned that. But I know a lot of people do stuff like that. So what's your take? I mean, other than customer service, I mean, give us some little tips and tricks or whatever about why we should really deal with a human such as Heith Harrison for homeowners insurance.
Well, you're paying your money, your premiums to offset the risk of whatever that policy is going to protect. So you need to sit down with an agent and go over everything. Farm Bureau is a full service insurance company, so I mean, there's not many products that we don't have that can meet your needs. Whether it's long-term disability, whether it's long-term care, life insurance, there's a lot of gaps in people's insurances that they don't realize until they sit down and meet with us. And we educate, and then we put it all out there, and it's up to you to decide whether you want those policies or not. Sometimes they're a perfect fit, but you might not be able to afford them, and sometimes sometimes it works out. So it just depends on the person. Everybody's different.
Right. So when you say full service, it just means that you offer like a variety of insurances outside of homeowners, like you were just talking about some medical insurance. Commercial
insurance. We're more of a mom and pop type insurance provider. Okay. We're not going to go insure a big dealership or something like that, but for trades folks, we insure them all the time. Very competitive. Workers' comp, general liability, things like that. So that's what I mean when I say full service, is we can provide a bunch of different types of insurances for people.
Cool. That's awesome.
Yeah.
So to help educate our audience, because that's part of the goal of this podcast, what are some things that people need to be thinking about? I know that you could probably go deep into this, so we'll keep it high level, but when you're maybe a first-time home buyer, what do you need to be thinking about? What are some things that people, like the average Joe, just is not thinking about this, but because you're an expert, tell us what we need to know.
I would say, and luckily around Lenoir County at least, fire districts have good rates. I always tell people to support your local fire department, because the more you do, the better equipment and services they'll be able to provide, which is going to lower your homeowners' rates.
Oh, that's interesting.
But in some cases, people have come to us for a quote, and they didn't realize that they're in a fire district that doesn't even have a volunteer fire department, and next thing you know, the premiums are outrageous because of that.
I never knew that mattered, so that's
absolutely
interesting.
Yeah. I mean, that's the number one thing I would say is fire district. The more urban area you're in, it's not going to be an issue, because you've got multiple fire departments all around.
Right.
So they'll be able to, make contact with you quicker than if you're in a rural area.
Right.
So that's something to think about. The biggest things that come into play with premium is coverage amount and deductible. Mm-hmm. So, and then, there's different endorsements that you can have on a homeowner policy that will depend on your situation and what type of home and what you're doing with that home.
Right.
So it just depends, and that's why if you go and get a policy online, you're not going to know to ask the questions, and you're probably not going to be able to speak with someone that can help you.
Like tailor your insurance.
Get a little
to
bit further, deeper in detail than
right.
what you need. Yeah.
Awesome. That's very interesting. Mm-hmm. So I've been working with you a little bit, and tell me about your service area. It's not just Lenoir County, right?
And we write in all of North Carolina.
Okay, so you're like me. You can serve anyone who's living in North Carolina.
From the mountains to the coast.
Awesome.
Yep.
That is great news. And what's the biggest challenge right now in your business as an insurance agent? You can't say interest rates. I'm so excited about that. Or can you?
I did write that down in my notes. No, I would say just like every other industry is inflation. I mean, it is impacting everything, and there's been 2 news media outlets that have done stories on insurance rates increasing like they have. Mm-hmm. They're going to continue to increase. It's just, when you have vehicles as expensive as they are, and parts are limited, and people are stealing vehicles more now, believe it or not, than they have in the past, at least in North Carolina. So those things just add up, and it just increases insurance costs.
And it's amazing with the price of the vehicles and all the electronic pieces of it, and how nice vehicles are now that people can still.
Yeah, like certain vehicles, they are able to get in there, and actually, I think there was a TikTok challenge about that.
Oh wow!
Yeah,
I don't have TikTok.
I don't either. So. I'm too old for it.
Me too. I'm like, I got enough social media stealing my life away. I don't need to add anything to it.
Yeah, me too.
So, and you may not be able to answer this question. I don't know. I'm just going to ask you anyway. Mm-hmm. Have you ever had a meaningful transaction? Every transaction is meaningful, but have you ever had one that really just was like, oh, maybe you just felt extra good that day or something afterwards?
Yeah. Occasionally there will be situations with home and auto, but I think the most impactful is life insurance related. And I always get choked up thinking about it, but I was with that life insurance only company before I came to Farm Bureau, and a guy that I wasn't really close to him, but we knew each other. Mm-hmm. He went to a local high school, and at the time he had one young daughter. He was a divorced dad, had one young daughter, wrote a policy on him. It was a $250,000 term policy. I've seen him around occasionally, but never really had much interaction with him. Mm-hmm. He passed away probably a year ago. He was 41 years old.
Oh my goodness.
And I had heard about it, and I couldn't really remember the details of the policy that I wrote him. But I knew I had done something, but I didn't know if he still had the policy or not.
Right.
Well, his dad actually did some research and found out who I was and contacted me at Farm Bureau and was just curious for his own personal satisfaction. Like, how did this conversation start? Why did you write this policy for him? Just wanted to know the details of it.
Right.
And me and him were both crying on the phone because it's just very impactful when you can help families like that.
Right.
So fast forward to at his death, he remarried and he had a couple of more kids. So that money really helped his family. So that's the type of stuff that drives us and gives us the passion for what we do.
Right. I think a lot of people feel like it's taboo or something about life insurance. It's like, if I buy life insurance, something's going to happen to me. But
there's a wide range of people that we get that have different objections and obstacles when it comes to life insurance.
Yep.
Whether it's like the old school mentality of like the door-to-door salesman and like they just push it away because they don't want to talk about it,
right.
or somebody that thinks that doesn't, it's too morbid to talk about, but
yeah.
It's one of the basic foundations of your financial plan at any
That's
stage
good.
of your life.
Right.
Whether you're just getting married or even before, you need to have something in place.
Right.
And a lot of times people think that whatever they have at work is good enough, but those policies typically don't go with you whenever you retire or if you quit and find another job. So
Right.
It's always good to have that policy that you own yourself.
Right. So help us understand real quick about, there's term life insurance and there's whole life insurance. Do you guys offer both?
That's all we offer is term and whole life.
Okay, and what's the difference?
Term is with you for that particular term. So whether it's a 10-year, 20-year, 30-year term, it can expire after that term. But it's the cheapest form of life insurance.
Okay.
Whole life insurance is expensive, but it's with you forever.
Okay.
So as long as you're paying the premiums and you're living, you got that policy.
Gotcha.
With term, if you outlive the term, then it's gone. But term is so cheap that if you have a lot of risk out there, if you have a young family and they depend on you for your income, then you need a lot of life insurance.
Right.
So that's where that term
What's
policy
the
comes
golden
in.
rule, or how much should you get? Everybody don't need $1 million, right?
Yeah, it's it's
You can afford it.
It's different. It's different for everybody. I always recommend about 10 to 12 times your income in term.
Okay.
And then if whole life is something that you really want, then we can certainly do that for you. The cost is just a little bit more.
Gotcha. So if you don't have life insurance, please call Heith, call somebody, get you some life insurance. Very important. And it is reasonably priced. We have it on all 5 of us. And it feels weird when you do. I won't lie. It feels weird when you do sit there and sign up for it. But in the big grand scheme of things, like you said, it's financial responsibility.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you've been with Farm Bureau for 6 years. How long have you been in insurance? You told us a while ago, but I'm just
8 years.
8
years total. Yep.
So what's changed since you first started, besides pricing?
Yeah.
Cars are way more expensive than they were 8 years ago.
Inflation,
Houses are.
Yeah, the inflation thing is nothing that we've ever experienced before.
Yeah.
And it's sad for people that are on fixed incomes. Their incomes aren't increasing, but everything else is. So, my favorite soft drink is a Diet Sunkist.
Okay.
And I went to the grocery store and it was $8.99 a 12-pack. I'm like, I'm not drinking that for $8.99. So. Anyway, I was a little hurt. I had to go get a 2-liter instead, and
So
it's just not the
inflation
same.
has made you healthier. Oh no, it hasn't. You got a 2-liter.
I got a
Okay,
2-liter.
yeah, we buy our girls 1 12-pack of Cokes a week. You can drink them in one day, or you can make them last. But that's all you're getting because they are expensive. But so you're right. Let me ask you. I just had a thought.
Yeah.
When the housing market was super crazy, like 2 years ago, how does that work from an insurance standpoint? Because, the houses were not appraising for what people were paying for them. So how does that work from a...
Well, see, there's 3 different factors that people
or some were and some weren't.
kind of get confused with. Like, whenever we're doing a quote for someone and they're like, well, the tax value is only this amount, or, my loan amount is only for this amount, or the fair market value, what I could sell it for is this amount. but all those numbers don't have anything to do with homeowners insurance.
Oh, okay. Well, that's interesting.
Because, the coverage that you want is what a contractor is going to rebuild your home for if there was a total loss. So that number could be lower than your mortgage, than your loan amount.
Right, okay.
I mean, you figure if you're buying a house at the beach, the land is going to be half or more than the cost of the house in some cases.
Right.
But we're only insuring the house. We're not insuring the land. So as a lender, you probably didn't know this, but like if you say, okay, this loan is for $600,000, well, whenever we do our cost estimator, we see that, a good estimate for a contractor to rebuild that home might be $500,000. So that's all we're going to write it for. Mm-hmm. We're not obligated to write it for the cost of the loan. We're obligated to write it for the replacement cost of the house.
Okay. Did they have the option to go up? Okay. It's been a long time since I've actually had to.
Your underwriters.
Stephanie does all my stuff for me.
Your underwriters would approve it. They know. It's fine.
Okay. Well, all that is very interesting. I'm learning today too, guys.
Sometimes the underwriting for lenders are, sometimes we have to go back and forth, because they expect certain things that maybe we can't provide, or whatever the case may be. So, but it all works out.
Yeah.
The bottom line is you want to close, and they're going to do what they can do to get it to close. So.
Awesome. This is good conversation. So what are your goals for 2023 as an insurance agent? Do you set goals each year for yourself or for your team?
Yeah, we have production minimums. We have standards that we want to hold to ourselves. We have goals that we want to reach. Without getting too specific in what they are, we want to reach the highest level of those production goals. But my overall goal would be to have the office, whatever goal the individual agent has is just to push and reach those goals. Right. Because if they're reaching their goals, I'm going to do all I can to reach mine, and that's what makes a good office.
Right. And I am with you guys, and not that I'm necessarily putting in a plug for Farm Bureau, but I feel like you guys have provided us with great service over the years. So if you were not an insurance agent, what would you be doing?
Something entrepreneurial, I think. I'll give my buddy Braxton a little plug. In high school, we would sell airheads and blow pops, 50 cents a piece, I think, back then. He was much better at it. He had a larger market share than I did. But no, I've always been that way. So something in sales.
Yeah.
Regardless of what the product is, I would want to do that because I like being in front of people and like building those relationships with people.
Yeah, awesome. When I was in elementary school, I had a friend, Amanda Jones, and she's married now. Amanda Brinkley out there. We used to, her mom would buy us yarn, and we would braid bracelets and sell them to people for $0.25. Man, we made a lot of money. A quarter adds up quick. But so before we wrap up today, tell us something fun or interesting about yourself that maybe most people might not know.
Well, I've been married 16 years. I've got a son and daughter. I moved to my wife's neighborhood when I was 10 years old, same street. We grew up like adjacent, right across the street from each other. Our moms still live there. So cool. Babysitters are super convenient there. Right. We didn't have a single class together growing up in school, and that's so hard to believe in such a small town. Right. We went to our senior prom as friends, and then we started dating that next summer, and then the rest is history. So that's pretty interesting. She's had a million different reasons to leave me, but she hasn't done it yet.
My goodness.
Thank you, Brittany.
Your mother-in-law was my dental hygienist when I was growing up.
Like 42 years, I think.
So I watched Brittany grow up through the pictures in her little office.
Yep.
And then, once we all grew up and my kids started going to Frank, there was Brittany. And I'm like, oh my gosh, it's such a small world. Then I don't exactly remember how I met you, but then you were her husband. And I'm like, wow, it's such a small world.
Small world, small town. Got to love it.
Yep, got to love it. Well, thank you all so much for tuning in today. Heith, thank you so much for coming on.
Thank you for having me.
And if anybody's interested in life insurance, homeowners insurance, or whatever else you have to offer, how can they contact you?
You can reach me on my cell phone, 252-560-4620.
All right. And if you ever need a home loan for any reason, I'm Kristen Goyette with Motto Mortgage Complete, 252-560-8632. Thank you for tuning in, and we'll see you on the next episode.